was the movie that kind of introduced you to American audiences and maybe broader audiences. Did you have a sense when it came out that, oh, this is a thing now, this is what I'm going to be doing?
I was always quite arrogant about myself before. I mean, there's alongside feeling like I won't be able to do it, there's an absolute bloody-minded kind of self-confidence that goes along with it as well. And at that age, when I was quite young like that, I just felt absolutely that this is it. Here, I'm exactly where I should be, and this film is. I never doubted. I still don't really actually doubt that films won't work, or I'm convinced that they'll be not that they'll be huge box office successes, but they'll be absolutely the film we're trying to make. And Trainspotting was that experience. Was reading that role and. Being involved, the filmmaking was just like clockwork. It was like a well-oiled machine. Everything was so smooth, and there was an amazing cast, and one of the world's best directors, I think, and some of the best writing that I've ever had to work with, and it was just a perfect situation, really. And that we were all absolutely flying while we were making it, not on drugs, but on our flying on our sort of our mutual energy, and belief that this was going to be extraordinary, and it was, it was an incredible film to be part of, and to be in it when it came out in the mid-90s, the early 90s, mid-90s, and to be part of that sort of, it was very, very cool to be in London at that point, with Oasis and Blur and Pulp and that movie, and to be right in the heart of all that was quite dangerous and also really exciting.
Did you make a pro and cons list about being in Star Wars? I mean, you knew right away that it was going to be a franchise, that it was going to change your career, that you were going to have fanboys of a different variety coming up to you.
Yeah.
Did you worry?
Yeah, I did. I worried about it, that it wasn't me, that it wasn't me. But the closer I got to it, the more I wanted it. And I took advice from everyone. I spoke to Danny Boyle about it. I spoke to my Uncle Dennis, who's always been my, he's an actor, and he's always been my inspiration as an actor. Funnily enough, he was in the first three. He played a character called Wedge in the first three Star Wars films. I was the only non-lead to survive all three movies. And I wonder if they'll need him for the new ones that they're about to make. Maybe he'll get a call. But I enjoyed it. I mean, I enjoyed it. They were very difficult. I've always been very honest about that. They're very difficult to make because and they became increasingly difficult because as we went through the three films that I made, the three Star Wars films, they became more and more green screen movies. The first one we did, we had sets, quite big sets, and I remember walking with George when I got the part. George showed me around the studio, and we shot the first one in London. And we were walking around, and we went into this art department, huge big room, and there was guys with chainsaws shaving a huge block of polystyrene into the shape of the submarine. And there was they were lowering they probably weren't, but I remember this, that they were lowering the kind of perspex canopy onto the top of the submarine, and I looked at it and I went, wow. Will we go underwater? Will we be under the water? And he looked at me like I was nuts. He went, what? And I said, will it go underwater? We'll be underwater in it. And he just laughed. He went, it's not real, And he was right. It was not real from then on. And the little boy in me who loves Star Wars, a little tear was shed. But it's hard to do. I've loved being in them, I really do. It was the first films that I made that kids could see, really. They weren't watching The Pillow Book or Trainspotting, but they could see that, and so I had this new relationship with children, and sometimes that was good, because they were really excited, and other friends of mine, I remember Jude's son wouldn't speak to me for 3 years. He just, whenever I came in, he would hide behind the sofa, like he was terrified. He couldn't deal with Obi-Wan Kenobi being in the room, It was too much for him. And so in other relationships with children, it was a bad thing. But I've always enjoyed being in them, and I think people think that I'm not happy with them, and the truth is that I am. They're extraordinary, fantastical things to be in, and to be that role is really special to me, because if you'd asked me when I was a kid, I was so I loved them so much. My brother and I wore out the videotape, literally wore it out watching Star Wars. A, because my uncle was in it. It's the first film I'd ever seen on the big screen with my uncle in it. B, it was Star Wars, and it just blew our minds. I was 6 or 7 when the first one came out. And I still sort of, and I think people wanted to, like guys and guys mainly probably, who felt that way that I did, watching the first one in 1976 or 7, wanted to feel like that again, and they didn't, because they're now in their 30s, you know, and they've responsibilities and they're adults, and that sucks. So they didn't feel that anymore, and that's why I think the films came in for such criticism. But I was always happy to be in them.
What do you get out of doing like an action series or a big, you know, grand musical like Moulin Rouge or something like that? That's a different kind of acting altogether in some ways.
I mean, I've done big films, but they're just all different feels. It's a nice thing to turn up on a huge set sometimes, but it's more satisfying to turn up on a tiny one usually, because it's just nice to know everybody in the crew and everyone's names, and you can turn up like the island or Angels and Demons, or there's just so many people in the crew. You turn up and it's a massive military operation from going from one place to the next, so you can't possibly shoot. So you shoot much slower. Everything's much slower. And I like to shoot really quickly. I like like when we did Trainspotting, we did 4 or 5 locations a day. We'd just jump out. We'd jump out of vans. You know, they would be the art department had been ahead of us, and they'd just be literally painting the last lamppost or whatever it is, and we'd shoot a scene, jump back in the vans, we'd be somewhere else.
You sound like you were Scottish thugs going in there.
Just painting stuff. But that was really thrilling. It's really exciting, and it's something really. I think you can sense it in the work. You can feel that raw. You don't have money to throw at problems. You have to solve them creatively. When we did Shallow Grave, Cave Quinn, the designer, had all this extraordinary set. But I remember my bedroom was the wrong color or something. It was too blue. The blue wasn't blue enough or something. And on another movie, you would just go, okay, well, look, we'll just take a break. We'll come back to this tomorrow. And there we were acting the scene with, the paint fumes and everything, because they just literally painted the walls. And there's something really I remember always seeing Danny Boyle with Brian Tofano, our DP, a brilliant lighting cameraman, and Pat Harkin, who was a props guy, and they were all often the 3 guys who, when the shit hit the fan, would be standing together, just coming up with ideas. And Danny's a brilliant director because he'll listen to other people. A lot of directors suffer from the need to be in charge of everything, and Danny is a true filmmaker because he stands amongst all these talented people and will listen and take people's suggestions, and that's a very exciting place to be.
You're playing this really intimate scene.
Yeah.
How do you feel then to have something that intimate and that emotional, and you have to kind of do it with a guy with the camera?
Yeah.
Tell me about your technique for.
I love that. I love that about filming. I think that's the sort of the most thrilling thing of all for me, is that it's those 2 very separate things. There's 2 sides of the brain, or 2 very different things happening. One is that you have to inhabit the emotional life of your character in this given moment, and to the point where it feels real, because that's the best it can be, if it feels real to you. And then the other part of your brain is making sure that performance is going on camera or on theatre, going to the audience, and that's a technical thing. And when those 2 worlds come together, it's so thrilling. I love that, because in this situation you can be playing a scene where the camera's far away on a very long lens, and when the camera's far away on a long lens, it's beautiful. Usually the things that make close-ups beautiful, and is the background's very out of focus, and the focus puller has got a tiny depth of field like this. So if you move like that, you're out of focus. So if you're doing an emotional moment like this, and you're crying, and you're going like this, and you're going like that, well, this great emotion that you're dredging up will not be in the movie, because you'll be out of focus. So when you're doing those 2 things, and you're aware that the focus is very narrow, and so you're working with him, you're working with the focus puller, and you're working with the camera crew, and yet you're still completely wrapped up in the emotional moment. That's what's wonderful about film acting, I think, for me. I love that the most. That's what really makes me excited.